Hi there, beautiful people. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Maria Gift. I'm a Namibian YouTuber currently based in the UK, England to be specific. I make videos about my life and I post them here on YouTube. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you guys so much, guys. We're growing and I'm really so grateful. It's because of you that I keep doing what I'm doing. If you have not subscribed, please make it a point to hit that subscribe button, join the family, share with me in the comment section how I can make this channel more interesting for you. And yeah, let's get into the video. So, as the title of the video suggests, this is a part 3 of my 3-part series on different ways to move to the UK. If you haven't watched my part 1 and part 2, I'll leave the links to those videos in my description box. Do click them and find out the other 2 ways to move to the UK. Before we begin this video, let me put out a disclaimer that I am not an immigration lawyer or an immigration professional. This video doesn't constitute professional advice. If you do need professional advice, I advise you reach out to a professional that will help you based on your personal circumstances. The information given in this video are information either from my own personal research or my own experience. Now that that is out of the way, let's get right into the video. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about the dependent visa. Moving to the UK with a dependent visa. Now, a dependent is a person who's moving to the UK because they depend on somebody. Their visa or their settlement status or their resident status depend on somebody else. Now, usually, this dependent visa is given to either a dependent to a student, which was shared in my part 1, or a dependent to a skilled worker, which is part 2. So if you are a dependent, let's say your partner or your parent is coming to the UK either as a student or as a worker, you may qualify to come with them as their dependent. Now, what does a dependent visa mean? Dependent visa is given to anybody, to either a child or a partner of a visa holder. A child normally is kids under the age of 16. Kids under the age of 16, they qualify to be child dependents. But if your child is over the age of 16, they also may qualify to be dependents for your visa, but there are different conditions. For example, the child must still be in school full time, or the child must be living with you. You must be able to prove that this is your child and they are dependent on you, and also many other things. The second person to qualify for a dependent visa is your partner. Now, the reason why they say partner, this can be your wife, your husband, or just your consensual partner. This is somebody who you are not legally married to, but you are in a committed relationship with. So now, if this person is not legally married to you, but you are in a relationship, this relationship must be at least 2 years old, and you must be staying together, because there are conditions that you must meet. There are things that you must prove that you are in a relationship. They'll ask you different things, like maybe a bill that you share together, your rental agreement that you share together because you live together, water bills that you share together, even pictures. They might even ask for pictures to prove that your relationship is real. So this is now if you are not married. But if you are married, it's fairly simple. You just show that, of course, you have a marriage certificate, and then it also helps if you are actually living together, because there are times where you are married but you don't live together. But if you are married and you do live together, it's even easier. So you should be able to prove those things when you are applying. These are now your dependent when you're applying for a dependent visa. Now, with a dependent visa, it's quite straightforward and quite simple, so this video is not even going to be long. Number 1, when you do get either a student visa, or you get your CAS as a student, certificate of acceptance of study, or you get a COS, which is your certificate of sponsorship if you are a student, or a skilled worker visa respectively, you will start applying for your visa. When you start applying for a visa, these certificates will have what is called an application number. Now, this application number on these certificate is very important, because that is the number that your dependents are going to use to apply to show that they are coming as your dependents. Now, it doesn't mean that you must apply together, because it's fairly expensive to apply together. Usually what is smart, what most people do, is the main applicant, which is in this case either the student or the worker, will apply for their visa first, will come to the UK, they will settle for like maybe 3 to 6 months before, and then the dependents will now start the application process, and then they will join the main applicant. That is the smartest thing to do, because number one, finances, number two, you don't know where you're going. Imagine your dependents are like 3 kids, and now you have 3 babies. You still have school if you're a student, or you have work if you are a skilled worker. Now you must juggle daycare, you must juggle schools and all these things, right? So of applying for a dependent visa, of course, you need to have your TB test. Your dependent is a dependent, you need to have a TB test done. Now, depending on whether, if your main applicant is coming as an employee or as a skilled worker, there are some jobs that were requiring the main applicant, for example, to have a police clearance. If the main applicant's visa needed a police clearance, their dependent, if it's their partner, would also need a police clearance, because you are dependent to somebody who's working in a job, for example, that is sensitive, like health or education or safety. So your dependent, you would also most likely need a police clearance. And then you would need to apply for your visa and pay for your visa fee. You also need to show a proof of fund in your bank statement as the applicant, as the dependent, in your own, as a dependent in your own account. If it's a partner, it's in your account, or sometimes I think you can also show in the main applicant's account. That also works if you are married or if it's your partner. Of course, if it's your children, then it will be the main applicant's account that will have proof of fund. For a dependent visa, proof of funds, you need to have, I think, 285 for your partner and about 315, if I'm not mistaken, for your first child. So if it's your partner, you are the dependent partner, you need to prove 285 in your bank account, and then you will need about 315 for your first child. If you have now 3 kids, it will be, I think, an additional 300 or 200 pounds for every 200 pounds for every additional kid. So the first kid, 315, and every other kid after that is 200. And this money must be in your account for a period of 28 days, and then you submit this bank statement. I think what's usually safer is you show the bank statement on the main applicant to show that these people are dependent on me and I will take care of their finances. Now, this is exempted when, for example, if the main applicant is coming with as a student, and the student has a scholarship, and the scholarship is funding dependents as well, because there'll be a box on the certificate of sponsorship, or on the certificate of sponsorship, that shows that the employer will take care of the maintenance for the applicant and their dependent. If that box is not ticked by the main applicant's potential sponsor, then unfortunately you have to show proof of funds. And then after that, you need to, of course, have valid passports. You also need to now apply for your visa, TLS, you do your biometrics, you get an appointment to do your biometrics. This is now as a dependent. And then you attend your interview for your biometrics, and then you are ready to travel. Now, of course, when you're applying as a dependent for a skilled worker visa or dependent for a student, it's a separate application for each applicant. So it's not a thing of, if I am the main applicant, I apply and all my dependents will apply on one form. No. If I am the main applicant, I apply on my separate application form, my husband separate application form, my kids, every kid will have his or her own application form, and they use the same code that is on my certificate of sponsorship to show that all these 3 or 4 people are dependent on this other person who's the main applicant. Once you've applied for the visa, you get your appointment, you pay for your visa fee, you show your proof of fund, you attach your documents, birth certificates of children, marriage license, marriage certificate if you're married. If now, let's say, it gets really also tricky with bringing children, because if, for example, you are bringing your children, you also need a letter from the other parent. If you are a mother bringing your child to the UK, you need an affidavit from the child's father that allows you to bring that child to the UK, and you need to also attach that document. It's the same apply if you are a father and all these things. You can't just be taking kids out of the country without authorization from the other parent. If the other parent is not available, again, you need an affidavit that prove that that other parent is not available to provide their own permission to take the child out of the country. After you do your biometrics, then you are ready to travel. As I said, now you come to the UK. When you come to the UK as a dependent, let me talk about as a dependent partner of a main applicant. Now, whether the main applicant is a student or is a worker, you as a dependent, your visa is tied to this person. So if this person got a 5-year visa, you as their dependent will also get a 5-year visa. If they got a 3-year visa, you would also get a 3-year visa. It's not a thing of the dependent gets less. No, you get the same because your visas are linked together. But now there are specific things. When you get your visa approved as a dependent, you get sent a decision letter, and in that letter there's a list of things that you are allowed to do and what you are not allowed to do in the UK. The number one thing is you are not allowed to claim public funds. Anything that is regarded, there's a list on gov.uk what is regarded as public funds. You are not allowed to do that. With regards to getting a job, this is where it gets really, really beneficial if you are dependent. Dependents, I feel like, are the most free agents when they come to the UK, because if your main applicant is a student, remember a student can only work 20 hours. As a dependent, you can work as many hours as you want. There is no limitation on the number of hours that a dependent can work, whether it's a dependent of a student or a dependent of a worker. Number two, the dependent, whether it's a dependent of a skilled worker, you know how a skilled worker, you can only work in certain jobs. But with a dependent, you can do any job you like. You can do as many jobs as you want. You can work as many hours as you want. So the way most people do it is, let's say you are a family of 3. As a mom, a dad, and 1 child, or 2 kids. Let's say a mom, a dad, and 2 kids. What most people do is they will come. The main applicant is, let's say, a student, right? They will come. The mom and the dad will first come, and then the student will go to school. The dependent will get full-time work, and then also take on a lot of other overtime shifts so that they can cover the bills together. They can cover also savings, because the goal is to maybe also bring your kids over, because now it's just the 2 of you. You work, pay your rent, pay your bills, save. And also when the student is working, the student would work there are 20 hours, and those 20-hour job is just maybe to add on to the fees, the student fees that you need to pay. That's what most people do. Share the bills, whereby the dependent is the one who's doing full-time work, and the main applicant, who's a student, will focus on their studies. Because if this main applicant fails, both of you, both the dependent and the applicant, have to go back to your country. So what most people would often do is make sure that the main applicant focuses on their studies, and then the dependent will take on the role of bills and making money. Then after the studies are done, then they can help each other. If again the main applicant is a skilled worker visa, it's even easier, because now you can start building your credit. You can start saving so that you can also get on the property ladder, get a good credit score, so you can start buying your own house, and also start thinking of getting comfortable and being permanent in the country. That is the advantages of a dependent visa. And also, you as a dependent, you need to also make sure that your main applicant does not violate their visa. Because even if you get a job, let's say you are dependent and in your country you were, you were human resource in a big company, and then you come with your spouse who is a student, or your spouse who came as a nurse. Now you have left your HR job in your country, and then you come here as a dependent and you are working. Let's say you get another HR job in one of the big companies in the UK, and then your main applicant violates their visa. Now, unfortunately, you need to go back because there is no way you can stay when your main applicant is leaving. So what most people will also then do is find what is a dependent, start also looking for jobs that offer their own visa sponsorship, so that instead of being dependent and main applicant, you can both be main applicants on your own visa. Just so that, let's say one is a student, you are a student, your partner is a student, you need to be looking for, as a dependent, you need to be looking for jobs that offer visa sponsorship, so that when your main applicant is done with their studies, you can move them to your new visa sponsoring job, and then you will become the main applicant, and the student who was a main applicant before will now become your dependent. If now your main applicant is a skilled worker and you are their dependent, you can also look for your own sponsorship job, so that if anything goes wrong, because the thing is, in the UK, if your job goes wrong, if the company closes, or the company loses their visa sponsoring license, or maybe you are just not doing your job the way they want you to do your job, they can revoke your visa anytime. Now imagine you are in the country for like 3 years. There's 2 years until you get permanent residency, and then the company loses their license. Now you are given 90 days to leave the country, but because you are independent and you've been working for this other company for years, and you have not secured your own sponsorship, so immediately you get a permanent job, make sure, ask your employer as a dependent if they can give you visa sponsorship, so that if anything happens to any of your two employments, you have the other one to fall back on. That is actually my advice with regards to being independent. Yes, it's fun because you can do any other job and all that things, but it's not sustainable. Personally, I feel like it's not sustainable. Better to be on your own main applicant rather than relying on another person, because you never know what this person can do. That's number one. You can never know what their employer can do. Because sometimes it's not even the main applicant's fault. It's just a company that just, for example, goes bankrupt. Now they can no longer afford to be sponsoring visas. You have to go back to your country. But if you have your own visa, it's just safer. So yeah. And now if you are bringing children as dependents in the UK, you need to make sure that you enroll your children in school. Schools in the UK are free. As public schools in the UK are free, and it's unlikely that, unless you're taking your child to a private school, most schools, you enroll your kids in schools that are next to your area. So when you're enrolling, you go on your council website of the town or the city where you are living, and then you see the available schools that are next to you. If you enter your postcode, they'll give you a list of schools that are available, and then you can find schools for your kids. Also, bringing your kids to the UK as dependent, you need to make sure that you have sufficient accommodation for them. You cannot just get a 1-bedroom apartment, but you have 2 kids. Now it's 3 people living in a 3-bedroom apartment. It does not work like that. The government will not allow it, and you will get into trouble where social services will get you in trouble. You will get in trouble with social services, especially when your kids are different genders. There's a certain age, I'm not sure, there's a certain age where kids are no longer allowed to share a bedroom when they're of a certain age and they're different genders. So if you have a son and a daughter and yourself, you need 3 bedroom, and the rent is expensive. So before you bring your kids to the UK, you need to do your math, you need to budget. And also it depends on the ages of your kids, because there are certain ages in the UK where kids are not allowed to stay by themselves. Now imagine school closes at 3:30, 3:30 in the UK. Most schools is 3:30 in the UK. And work, you usually knock off at 4:30, 4:30 or 5. Or sometimes you even work nights depending on the jobs. I think like doctors and nurses and care workers, they work nights. So who would be staying with your kids? Because in the morning it's all good, they're at school until like 3:30, but you're at work until 5. Where will they go? And daycare is really, really expensive, especially if your kids are of a young age, under the age of 10, 12. That's too young. You need to do your math very, very, very well, and your budgeting to make sure that you can afford. Okay, this is pretty all there is to the dependent visa. If you need more information with regards to the dependent visa and with regards to also the dependent visa, it's often case specific. So what might work for the one person is not what works for the other person. So when you apply for it, the Home Office will give you what you are allowed to do, what you are not allowed to do, what you qualify for, and what you do not qualify. So do your research, further research. www.gov.uk is your plug. If you need if you have any questions, put them down in the comment section. I'll try to answer them as effectively as I can. If I cannot answer them, I'll also point you to the direction that you can get advice. So this is we've come to the end of this video. I hope you found this information helpful. If you're still here until the end and you have not hit the subscribe button, please do hit that subscribe button right there. Also put on your post notification bell so that you are reminded every single time that I post a new video. Like this video if you found this information helpful. Share with your friends, your family, and your friends' friends if you feel that there is anybody that can benefit from this information. Let us grow the channel. Thank you for engaging with me in the comment section, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.